Well, thank you very much, Elizabeth, and thank you all for coming this evening. Let me introduce our other speakers, and I'll start, and we'll go from there. So, first off, I'd like to introduce Quan Williams with New Virginia Majority. Quan Williams with New Virginia Majority to my left, and we also have Alexei Laushkin, who's with the Evangelical Environmental Network. And I think you'll find out why these people are so important to the issue of climate change and clean energy as we go through this evening. So first off, really appreciate the fact that we had an opportunity to talk about this. I think it's important for environmental reasons, and as a Democrat myself, I think it's important for political reasons as well. This is going to be one of President Obama's legacy issues. Obamacare and climate change will probably be two issues for which he may be most remembered in the future. And the reason why is because he's done so much on this issue, and we'll talk about that. But first, let's talk about climate change, because there's enough people out there who seem to still doubt that it's real, even though the polls show that about 75% of the public believe it. And even a majority of Republicans believe it too. As we all know, the Republican Party has been hijacked by the Tea Party, so it doesn't really matter if the majority of Republicans actually believe that climate change is real. The people that show up and vote in the primaries don't believe that it's real, and so we have a serious political divide in this country that is really exaggerated by issues like redistricting and other, other processes that kind of skew the electorate so that you don't really address these issues. The other problem we have is most Americans believe that climate change is real. It's not an issue that ranks as high as other issues like jobs and the economy, education, and so it's not the number one issue why people vote. Those are some of the obstacles that we have. But let me tell you why it's so important. Many of you already know. Okay, so let's just start with some really basic stuff. So, you know, our average body temperature is about 98.6, right? And some of us are a little bit high, we're a little high, some are a little low, but 98.6, right? So if you were running a temperature that was 3 degrees over that, or 4 degrees over that, how would you be feeling? Pretty lousy, right? I mean, you'd have the chills, you'd have the aches, you'd be in pretty bad shape, right? So think about that for just a second, then think about our global average temperature. Okay, so we know that on any given day here in Virginia, you know, you can start out at 40 degrees and end up at 80 degrees in some days. I mean, so there's a wide range of temperatures in any given day in Virginia, particularly in the spring and the fall. So when we talk about a 2-degree centigrade increase in temperature, or in the case of Fahrenheit, 3.6 degree increase in temperature, people say, well, that's not that bad. I mean, God, the temperature goes from 40 or 50 all the way up to 80 or 90 in a given day. So what's the big deal? Well, we're not talking about the range of temperatures here, which relates to the weather. We're talking about the global average temperature. The global average temperature. So the global average temperature of the planet, of our Mother Earth, whatever that temperature is, we're talking about raising that temperature by 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit in the next century. And that's sort of the point where scientists say, if it goes any higher than that, we're going to have some really serious problems. So when someone says, well, 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit, 2 degrees centigrade is not that big a deal, we're talking about the global average temperature. And a global average temperature increase like that drives all kinds of things. It drives more severe storms, it drives droughts, it drives melting of the ice caps. And there's a lot of really bad news coming out of Antarctica with regard to the western ice shelf. And if a lot of that ice were to melt, our sea level rise would be significantly higher than we're predicting now. So when people express some skepticism or don't think that a 3.6 degree increase in temperature is that big a deal, think about how you would feel if your average body temperature increased 3.6 degrees. So we're talking about average temperature, not the range of temperature in any given day. And so that's driving a lot of problems. It's driving sea level rise in Hampton Roads, the second most vulnerable area in the country in terms of economic impacts to sea level rise. We see these severe droughts in places like California and Texas, followed by these severe storms in Texas. I only hope that, I guess my only hope is that if the flooding is going to impact anybody in Texas, they were climate doubters. But unfortunately, that's probably not the case. More than likely, it's the people who are most vulnerable, and Quan will be talking about that. Okay. So we need to take action. We really take significant action And when I said that most Americans believe that climate change is real, they also think that if something is this pressing, that their government's taking care of it. And the sad fact is that the government has not been doing a whole lot. As you all know, before we had Governor McAuliffe, we had a climate denier, in the State House, and an Attorney General who sued the University of Virginia, which was a double lip move on his part. He lost. But still, that radical that he would sue the University of Virginia, alleging that Michael Mann had committed fraud by doing climate science. It's just crazy. But that's what is still going on in some places. So we need to take action. And the President Obama has taken significant action during his term of office. First off, fuel efficiency vehicles. There's a reason why gas prices are low, and it's not just because the Saudis are pumping a lot of oil. It's also because we're using less gas. And the reason we're using less gas is because our cars are so much more efficient, and they're going to continue to get efficient. And because of that, we're saving money, and we're also reducing our carbon emissions. And so one of the solutions that President Obama is pursuing, one, because it's good for the economy, and two, because it's good for the climate, is higher fuel efficiency standards. One of the second most notable areas, the one that's really hot right now, and that's what that petition going around is for, is the Clean Power Plan, the EPA's Clean Power Plan. This is the first time we're going to reduce carbon pollution emissions from fossil fuel power plants. Okay, we have limits now on mercury. We have limits on nitrogen oxides that contribute to ozone smog. We have limits on sulfur dioxide. We have all kinds of limits on pollution, but we never limited carbon pollution, CO2, until now. So the EPA has a Clean Power Plan out that will reduce carbon emissions from existing fossil fuel power plants 30% by 2030. And that is what right now is the bill that Mitch McConnell of Tennessee had said he's going to kill it. He's going to make sure it never passes. He's encouraging states to just ignore it. And the coal industry is doing everything they can to sabotage it. The Koch brothers are spending millions of dollars, almost $1 billion, doing a lot of bad things, but specifically attacking these rules. And that's why it's so critically important that we get involved right now. These new rules are going to come out in August. The state of Virginia will have about a year to implement them. And so we need to support the EPA. And this is really important in Virginia. And the reason why I have some colleagues here and why there's a lot of people working on climate in Virginia is because Governor McAuliffe, Senator Warner, and Senator Kaine are okay on climate change, but they're not great. We're very concerned that the governor needs to do more and that he does his best to implement the Clean Power Plan. We're very concerned, particularly that Senator Warner could vote the wrong way on key votes in Congress where Mitch McConnell and the Republicans are trying to drive an agenda that would strip the EPA of funding or authority to do this. So we need to be in constant contact with our Democratic leadership in the state to make sure they understand that this is a critically important issue that needs to be addressed. Like I said, they're okay on climate, but they're not great. And that's why so many people are spending a lot of time. There are some Republicans that are starting to address this issue. Delegate Villanueva of Virginia Beach, is in the eye of the hurricane in terms of sea level rise. Kind of a mixed metaphor there. There might be in the eye of a hurricane too. But anyway, he introduced legislation last year called the Virginia Coastal Protection Act, which is an attempt to try and address climate change and address sea level rise at the same time. So those are some of the things that are being done that's really important. I'll give my time here. Let me bring up another topic. There's a reason why Virginia lags behind in addressing climate change compared to and clean energy compared to Maryland and even compared to North Carolina. And the reason why is because Dominion Virginia Power. This is my favorite corporation to hate. Their plan right now, their numbers right now are to increase carbon dioxide, increase carbon pollution in the next 15 years by 39%. Now, I just told you that we need to reduce carbon. We need to start bringing it down. Their proposal is to increase it by 39%, and that's just relying on new gas plants, not coal. So when you hear those advertisements about gas being the clean fuel, it's still a fossil fuel. It generates a lot of carbon, and it is going to cause serious problems for our climate. There's a lot of people fighting the pipeline for a lot of reasons, and one of those is climate change. Because if we just switch over to gas and we don't invest in wind and solar and efficiency, we're going to see incredible increases in CO2. In the case of Dominion, 39%, that's their number. I have a flyer up here, Dominion Global Warming Starts Here. I would encourage you to pick it up. We have it there, and we have it out front to take a look at that. Dominion, this past year, made a commitment to do a little bit more in the area of clean energy. They proposed to invest in 400 megawatts of solar by 2020. And some of my colleagues think, well, that's great. You know, and some people say, well, that's great. And Senator and Governor McCall said, that's great. Well, let me just give you a number to compare it with. In North Carolina, they're installing 300 megawatts every year. And Dominion's proposing to install 400 megawatts in 5 years. So we're only going to be further behind North Carolina, further behind Maryland, as Dominion continues to drag its feet. They're really good about issuing press releases about all the stuff they're doing in the area of clean energy. But the point is, they're really not doing much. And in fact, worse than that, they're obstructing the solar industry from letting loose and seeing the kind of investments that are happening in places like Maryland, and North Carolina, even in Georgia, you know, in California, Arizona, where, you know, the solar industry is growing leaps and bounds and creating lots of people. That's not happening in Dominion. It's not happening in Virginia. It's not happening in Virginia because Dominion owns the legislature. Sad to say, they own the Democrats as well as the Republicans. And we're not seeing a lot of progress in the legislature, and it's going to be up to us, citizens of all parties and all faiths, to make it clear that we need action on climate change. So let me just say this as I close. The environmental community cannot win this fight alone. We're up against, this is probably the largest and most complicated environmental issue that's ever been confronted, as we recognize that we really need to change the entire energy economy that we have known for the past 100 years or more. So the environmental community and the people who self-identify themselves as environmentalists, which is probably like 15% of the population, can't win by themselves. And so that's why I'm very pleased to have on the panel today Quan Williams, who's with New Virginia Majority, which is an organization, she'll tell you more about it, but an organization that works for immigrants' rights, works on poverty issues, you know, and diversity issues. And as I said before too, we also have Alexei Laushkin, who's with the Evangelical Environmental Network. And if you care about the planet from a faith perspective, then obviously you need to care about climate change. So I'm going to turn it over now to Quan, who's going to talk about why climate change is really important, you know, to the people that her organization works with. Thank you, Quan.